As report after report after report tells us we're heading towards a cliff edge, we have to ask ourselves, is there room for any optimism? Is there any point in doing all of this? Is there any hope? And I think we gather here today to realize and to acknowledge and to tell each other there is hope. At a very basic level, we have no option. Not doing anything is not an option. We have to do whatever we can to change, to reverse the damage that's been done, and to start living differently. Noam Chomsky always used to say, if you believe there's no possibility of change, you guarantee there's no possibility of change because you stop working for it. Well, we don't have an option. We have to do whatever we can, in whatever way we can, to change things around. But there's a bigger cause for optimism. There's a bigger reason why we should be hopeful for the future. Edward Said used to say there's always hope for the future, but you have to look for it in the right place. And I don't know about you, but in the last few months, I felt that I haven't had to look for it. Because all the children's strikes all across the world, where millions and millions of children every Friday have come out and demanded change and demanded answers and have come forward with solutions inspired by Greta Thunberg and encouraged by lots of people around them. These children have really showed us what hope looks like today. And I think there's much we can learn from it. But beyond that, just looking at this university, what can we do? We have about 20,000 people, and this is it. This is all of us here today. How do we build a movement? Why should we build a movement? I think it's important to realize that in this university, the fight for social justice, the fight for environmental justice, and the connection between education and communities and the world should really be in the DNA of this university. If you look at actions that have been taking place all over the world, and you think about how radical action is needed today, this university, because of the kind of university it is, should be at the forefront, I think, of that change. And you think of some radical action. You think of this university and the fantastic sustainability unit that we have that's been working for many years to bring these issues to the fore. We've got this university that was one of the early universities to sign the SDG Accord. We've declared a climate emergency with the student union. In the few years I've been at this university, I see the student union is a lot more active now. I think they're central to what we can achieve. They're central to what we should, how we should organize our student life and our student experience. And I've seen lots of good stuff coming out of the student union. We have started to organize instead of working in silos. We are working together. Us in the World is an example of how lots of different units within the university are coming together and they are working. You think of the leadership of this university. You think of the chancellor of this university, the Archbishop of Canterbury, recently challenged the financial sector to get its act together and address the climate issue. And if you want to see an example of radical action, you think of the Archbishop of Canterbury recently going to India. He went to Amritsar to mark the 100th anniversary of the Jallianwala Bagh massacre in Amritsar, where hundreds of children and families and people were killed by the colonial rulers at that time. And I don't know if you've seen the pictures of this, but he goes there and he lies straight on the ground and he apologizes. He lies straight on the ground and he apologizes. And that lying straight on the ground is symbolic because that was a punishment that locals used to face. They used to have to walk, to crawl through the streets on their all fours in Amritsar if they were on the wrong side of the law. In this day and age, in a country where more than 50% of the population still thinks colonialism was either neutral or beneficial, where our political leadership and our education system doesn't really address the horrors of colonial rule, that, from the Archbishop of Canterbury, was a radical, brave action full of humility. And he's our chancellor. You look at our former chancellor, the former Archbishop of Canterbury, Dr. Rowan Williams, who in this university a few years ago came and talked about how this university should be at the heart of what happens in their communities. He talked about how the whole ethos of an Anglican university should be to connect to the communities, to work for a better world, to start a discussion and debate about social justice and issues that are important to people. And you think of him a few weeks ago on the steps of St. Paul's, speaking in support of Extinction Rebellion and the children's strikes, because he says this is an important moment in our history and we need to be on the right side and we need to take a position. We can no longer be neutral. So I think when I look at these examples, I think the fight for social justice, the fight for this kind of socially relevant education should be in the DNA of this university. And if we've forgotten about it, and if we've got caught up in the more bureaucratic, administrative, managerial aspects of it, it is our job as students, as staff, to stand up and demand that we become more socially relevant, that we should be at the forefront of change that's happening all over the world. If these children that we're supporting today, if they don't fill you up with optimism, I don't know what will. And what we're going to do now is we invite you, if you can spare 15 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever, to come into town and march with us and support these students. Because I think it's really important that we take a position. And it's really important that we grow these numbers and we start a discussion in this university about these issues and make it central to what education is all about. Thank you very much.